In this example, we're going to use the calculator to find a quadratic function that fits the data below. I want to show you how to graph a scatter plot in your calculator and also fit a curve to the data in the scatter plot and graph that on the same axis. First, we're going to go to Stat and then Edit, so hit Enter. Now your first column of data will go under L1. So in this example, we're going to enter 60, 80, enter, 100, enter. Now arrow over to L2. And that list 2 is going to be your second column of data. So in this case, the number of daytime accidents. So we're going to enter 100, enter, 130, enter, 200, enter. So now we have our data entered in for our scatter plot. We want to make sure that our scatter plot is turned on. So notice here we have scatter plot. So we want to press that. So we're going to do second y equals to access scatter plot. And right now the scatter plot 1 is turned off. We want to turn that on. So we're going to hit Enter and then press on to turn it on. Now we're ready to graph our scatter plot. So next let's hit Graph. There's our scatter plot. Now sometimes your XY axis is not set to graph the scatter plot and you don't see anything. So if that happens, to fix that, you can hit Zoom, arrow down to Zoom Stat, which is number 9. Zoom Stat will automatically adjust your X and Y axis and your viewing window accordingly to your data in your scatter plot. So hit Enter and it'll fix your windows for you. Notice how this data kind of has a quadratic shape to it. We don't have very many data points to work with in this example, but we're told in the problem to try to fit a quadratic function to this data. So now our next step is to go to Stat. Now we're going to go over to Calculate. Now we have a bunch of options here for running regression. The ones that we will be working with is linear regression, quadratic regression, number 5, and also exponential regression. The one you choose depends upon how your data looks. Since our data looks like it follows a quadratic shape, we're going to select number 5 for quadratic regression. Hit Enter. Now we're going to press Enter again and it performs the regression results. Notice here's our equation for our quadratic. These gives us our coefficients, our A, our B, and our C coefficient for our quadratic equation. If you like, you can write this information down so you have it, because our next step is now to graph this quadratic equation. So to graph it, we're going to go to our y equals, and you can either manually enter that equation in for our y1 if you've written the information down, or kind of a shorthand way of doing it is to go to Variables. Hit your Variable button. Now go down to Statistics and hit Enter, and then arrow over to Equation and select option 1, Regression Equation. It has actually saved that information from our regression results in the calculator. So we're going to hit Enter, and there's our regression equation with our A and our B and our C coefficients. Now we're ready to graph this line. So we're going to hit Graph, or Curve I should say, not line. So now our curve is graphed over our data. Now I've written down the equation that we just graphed. It is 0.05x squared minus 5.5x plus 250. That is a quadratic equation that we graphed in our calculator. Now I've labeled that equation as a of x, and here's why. I'm labeling our input, our travel speed as just x, and then I'm using a for accidents. You could use any variable you wanted, but I chose to use a for accidents. So that is our function that we have here. Now we're going to use this function to make an estimate. We are asked to estimate the number of daytime accidents that occur at 50 kilometers per hour for every 2,000 million kilometers driven. So what we want to do is we want to plug 50 into our function. So when we plug 50 in for x, and once we've simplified that, we get 100 as our number of daytime accidents. Now you can find this value by this estimate by using your calculator. And the way to do that, once you have your scatterplot graphed and your function graphed over your data, you can then go to Second Calc and select option 1 for value, and then enter 50, that was our input value, enter 50 for x, and you should get 100 for the answer.